The math is just not looking to be in her favor.
When it comes to the State of the Union, what do you think Biden needs to say about the economy? Because the polls over the weekend, the Wall Street Journal saying 31% of voters say the economy has gotten better. This is an uptick, but they're still not giving Biden the credit when it comes to that. How does he hammer home this message?
Anne-Marie, that's going to be one of the biggest jobs he has on Thursday night, to reinforce that, the tide is turning economically. We've seen the pace of inflation slow significantly. Hiring is continuing. We're not seeing any signs of the soft landing that people have been talking about. Instead, the economy has kept going and going. And so that is a good news case he can present to the public. The challenge that the president faces is that, many voters, including those surveyed in the 7 swing states we polled, find that he may be too old for the job. The concerns about his age come up again and again, and it's not just what he says about the economy and about the state of the nation and about his priorities, it's how he says it too.
Yep, he needs to be compelling, is what the Washington Post says. You mentioned Benny Gantz meeting with the vice president today. How important is him to potentially ink this ceasefire in Gaza before his address on Thursday?
Well, it would be a huge boost to his argument politically here in the U.S. Obviously, the clock is ticking. Given the desperate situation on the ground in Gaza, where hunger and health conditions are so dire, we saw the U.S. dropping air supplies over the weekend there, in a signal of how desperate things are and how really significant the situation is. But for Biden to be able to say, look, we have a deal, we will be able to get medicine and food into the territory for at least 6 weeks and hopefully reach some sort of longer-term agreement. But that is the time pressure is also with Ramadan coming up. That begins on March 10th. And then politically, as I said, at home, Biden is under pressure from Democrats to do something to stop the violence and stop the bloodshed there.
Big time, and has been for the last few months. Michael, appreciate the update. Michael Shepard there, down in Washington, D.C. With us around a table through much of the next hour, Nouriel Roubini. Nouriel, I want to talk about something you've said, which is the biggest election year in history. A lot of people have said that line as well. Is that just purely about the numbers or the significance of the votes that take place this year?
It's not just the numbers, but I would say of all the elections, the most important one actually is the one in the United States, the one that could give us more of policy surprises. India, Modi is going to do well. European parliamentary election, probably vote towards populists of the right, but that's expected as a protest vote. I would say of all these elections, it's 4 billion people, but I'd say the one that actually is going to have a global economic and market impact is going to be the U.S. election.
Do you have a sense of what that impact would look like, depending on who wins in the United States?
Well, I think that geopolitically, many people worry that the policies of Trump, if re-elected on foreign policy, will be very different from Biden. I don't actually think so, because both Democrats and Republicans are tough on China. They're going to remain tough on China. On the issue of the Middle East, Trump, like Biden, realized that eventually normalization between Israel and the Arab states implies something of a two-state solution. He was himself, when he was in power, Trump sort of in favor of it. He's going to play hardball with the Europeans on Russia, Ukraine, but I don't think he's going to give up on Ukraine and give it to the Russians, because he wants to be tough on China. Now you're going to deter China and Taiwan if you're soft. So there'll be frictions, and he wants the Europeans to spend more. So I don't worry as much about foreign policy. I worry about, of course, some of the domestic policy. I think that on economic policy, that's a bigger risk to growth and market. He has said, Trump is going to impose a 10% tariff on all imports from everywhere around the world. Today, the average tariff rate in the U.S. is about 2%. And I said, in the case of China, it could increase tariffs to 30, 40, even 50, 60%. So you're going to have a trade war, not just with China, but also with your friends, allies in Europe, Japan, Korea, and so on. So economically, I think that's a big risk for the economy, for growth, for inflation, and for the market. It's something that I think people have not yet priced in. Second, I think that while there are large fiscal deficits between when Democrats are in power and Republican, he essentially has said he wants to renew completely all the tax cuts that were passed during his first administration. It's another $1.5 trillion. As opposed to just letting them expire. If you do that, you're not going to cut spending, and he said, I don't want to touch entitlement. You'll have another big fiscal deficits, and last year market started to worry about U.S. fiscal deficit becoming unsustainable. That's when the 5-year Treasury yield went to 5%. So the combination of those two things actually can be really bad for the economy and the market. You could have yields going higher, stock market falling, inflation rising, protectionism. So that's the economic risk.
When it comes to the tariffs, though, you said no one's pricing them in. When would they have to start actually thinking about that?
Well, they don't know yet whether it's going to win or not. The polls say it is ahead, but I think the economy, we know, is doing quite well. Of course, Biden has an issue of messaging, but, strong growth, low unemployment rate, job creation, falling inflation rate, stock market all-time highs, so by any standard. And I think that some of the polls are also biased by partisanship. If you're a Republican, you don't like Biden, you're cranky because of that rather than being cranky about the economy. So there is these biases as well. So I would say for now, we don't know who's going to win. And of course, if he's going to win, then he has to pass these actions. Some of them may require legislation, some of them may be done by executive order. And people are not yet concentrating on it. He's saying it, they think maybe it's not going to happen. But I think the biggest risk next year, if he's elected, is a trade war and unsustainable fiscal deficits. Those are really big issues.
People just aren't ready to talk about it yet. And so, Nouriel, stick with us. Nouriel Roubini with us for the next 30 minutes or so. Coming up a little bit later on the programme, Torsten Slok of Apollo on that big call for 2024. He's looking for no rate cuts this year. Coming up next, China breaking 30 years of tradition at the National People's Congress. That conversation with Enda Curran up next.
The world needs ways to reduce carbon emissions.
ExxonMobil can help.
We're working on solutions for our business
that can also help businesses like yours.
Heavy industry with low emissions. Let's deliver.
Everyone's talking about AI. But how can it help your business? Can it make chatbots act like your very own personal assistant? Yes. Put AI to work with ServiceNow.
What happened here?
AI.
Do we know who's getting AI right?
With HPE GreenLake, we have access to supercomputing to power AI at scale.
Helping to give us better insights.
Helping leave our competition in the dust.
Let me get a box combo. I'm kind of in a hurry.
Pull around. We'll have it ready for you.
Make a pit stop at Raising Cane's for craveable, hand-battered chicken fingers. They're always cooked to order and made to move.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Turbocharge your chicken fingers and get them even faster when you order online or with the Cane's app.
Woo! Raising Cane's chicken fingers. One love.
Timelessness and sustainability go together, right? You can't expect to be timeless if we're run out of resources. So for me, sustainability is not a side